So let me just say formally welcome everyone. It's great to have you here. Look at all those excited faces. It's going to be a crazy week of knitting and patterns. So welcome to the seminar. You are here for the knitting seminar, aren't you? Or do I miss it?
We're all in training.
Yeah, exactly. Half of you guys, how many people have trained with me before? Hands up. There you go. So you guys already know what's coming. How many of you haven't trained with me before? You guys are about to have a roller coaster ride of excitement. We're here for the Walk Up Advanced Street Hypnosis Seminar. I'm here with what I think is probably the best street hypnotist that I've ever come across, hands down, bar none. Of course, this is Anthony Jacquin. You can call him Master. So I think before we start, I'd give him a nice round of applause because this guy has... Anthony is going to show you some stuff that will really blow your mind, and I think it's going to be a very exciting seminar. So I hope you guys are looking forward to things. Before we begin, it's a couple of things you need to know. If you look at the back row over here, we have all these lovely faces. These are all our assistants here for the street hypnosis training, except for some who just snuck into the assistant's chair, but that's okay. I think you can tell who that is. Aside from the slightly shell-shocked one, what these folks have volunteered to do, which is very kind of them, is because there's a rather large crowd of you and we can't take 80 people out at the same time, it's going to be a little difficult or at least scary for the world when there are more hypnotists in the room than people, right? So what we're going to do is when the time comes to actually go out and stuff, we'll split you up into groups and you'll be led out by one of these guys. They've all had experience with street hypnosis. They'll have fun with you, they'll help you out, they'll be there, they'll patch things up if they all go wrong, so you're in good hands there. So at some point, feel free to go up there, thank them, shake their hand, buy them a drink, but after the street hypnosis, because having a drunk instructor is probably not a good idea. Any other kind of words or admin bits you want to cover?
No, it's good to see a few familiar faces, and some of those faces, have done this kind of training with me before. As you know, this is about practical skills. So there is a flip chart, but it's not going to get used a great deal today. We're going to really drill in the techniques bit by bit by bit until you've got the whole pie, as it were. And so I'll introduce you to my team in a bit more detail later on. But they're all, they're my best co-trainers. They're out there earning money doing this and found ways of monetizing street hypnosis without having to do traditional stage hypnosis. So you're in safe hands and we'll have a lot of fun.
And on that note, just remember, this is adult learning. By the time we start taking you out into the field and so on, you'll have some pretty decent skills as hypnotists. Even those of you, anyone here not have any formal training in hypnosis before? There's a few of you. By lunchtime, you'll be putting people on the streets in trance and it'll be easy, right? The thing to realize, though, is please bring with you the same kind of common sense that you've lived your entire life with, because hypnosis is a wonderful tool, but it's not magic. So make sure that and we'll talk more about safety and all that sort of stuff as we go along, as the hypnotist, you're in charge of the interaction, which means you're in charge of other people's health and well-being and so on. So when you go out there, by all means, have a great time. By all means, do all these crazy and wacky things. Just be respectful of the people that you work with, and make sure that you're doing it in a way that is going to be generally healthy and safe for the other people. Don't worry, we'll talk more about the things to look out for as we go along. Just bear in mind, at one point when this seminar is over, which will be, think about it, in about sometime about tomorrow, you'll have all the skills of a street hypnotist. You'll do more and more interesting stuff, more wacky stuff, more outrageous stuff than most of the YouTube videos you may or may not have seen, right? After that, it's just a question of polishing those skills to give you what you want, whether it's a lecture demo for a formal setting, whether you want to have like an impromptu dinner party where you do something cool, whether you want to be a paid professional doing walk-around hypnosis in a bar or restaurant. It doesn't matter. You'll be able to develop your own style, your own system, your own performance, right? But by the time I leave tomorrow, you will all be competent hypnotists. So you may as well start now with the attitude, which means you're in charge, you're directing the show, you're responsible. Does that make sense? And the flip side of that is, you're also responsible for you. Believe it or not, we're not responsible for you. This is not a therapy, this is not group therapy training. And we understand that going out and meeting members of the public, it can be a little bit scary. We're looking at you and you're members of the public, and I don't know about you, I'm a little bit scared. Exactly, I should be, right? The thing is, though, when you start working with people, they're going to look to you for the level of interaction, right? So make sure that you're in a good state, make sure you're having a good time, and everything will go well. If for whatever reason you want to take a break, or you can get a little bit too nervous, there's too much pressure being built up or anything like that, there is absolutely nothing wrong at all with just saying, you know what, I'm just going to take 5, right? I'll just watch this one, I'll sit this one out, right? In here, this is a safe environment, you'll be able to get lots of stuff done, but what I want you to realize is we're not going to push you. You're not going to be laughed at or ridiculed or anything like that if you don't do the right thing, because there is no time limit on how long you need to have to get the stuff. You will absolutely have the skills by the close of tomorrow, and you'll have a nice polished set of skills by the end of the 3 days. Then when you use it is really entirely up to you, right? You might be having dinner with friends and you just feel in the mood, and you'll do it. Or you might be out one night, and after this whole thing is over, you maybe haven't done anything in particular, but you're just having a good time, you have a few drinks with friends, and you feel a little playful, so you turn to the person next to you, and before you know it, the whole bar is going, who the hell is that? Right? There is no time limit on when or where you do it. So please be kind to yourselves, and just enjoy the thing. If you go out and you feel like doing it, great. If you don't really feel like doing it, no need to do it. And if you feel like pushing yourself anyway, by all means do so. But I can't decide that for you. Anthony can't decide that for you. You need to decide at what point you push, and at what point you just back off and relax and just take a breather. Does that make sense to you guys? And this is very important, especially given what we're doing here, because I think the last thing you want to have, I mean, imagine this scene, right? You have a hypnotist who's like this, okay, let me inside your mind now, I want something really funny. You can kind of see where we're going with this, right? The good news is we have a very polished way of getting you to the point where you're doing this stuff so easily, so naturally, out there on the streets, that whether you do it with your best friend or complete stranger, it will not make much difference to you. Sound good to you guys? All right, so in terms of logistics, anything else? We've got covered lunchtime, we've got lunch breaks. We'll start at 9 a.m. Again tomorrow morning. If those of you want to come in a little bit early at 8:30, we'll have a little bit of a Q&A kind of presentation, stuff like that. So you're welcome to come in early for that, or if you want to have that extra half hour sleep, you're welcome to have that as well. We'll talk a little bit about that more later on today. And other than that, really, it's just the one key thing you have to take with you for the next 3 days, especially whilst we're in here, and actually especially out there as well, is just your attitude. Your attitude will make or break what you do, right?
Yep, I believe that.
So bring a good attitude. Anyone here think they have a bad attitude? If you're raising your hand right now, then please get out. So keep that attitude of interest, of learning something new, experimenting with something. In here, you get to experiment with whatever you want, right? It doesn't matter if it goes right or wrong, quote unquote, it doesn't matter. Experiment, have fun with it, push your limits. If there's something you've always wanted to be able to do with hypnosis, as long as it's ethical and legal, and you've never quite had the opportunity or the courage to try it out, in here will be the perfect place to try it out. Yeah, it's safe here, there's friendly people here. If it doesn't quite work out the same way, you have people like Anthony, myself, and all these great assistants who can come in and help you out and show you where you might be missing a step or something along the ways. So this is really the place to experiment and explore. Make sense? Then when we get out on the streets, all you have to do is some very simple things, and we'll actually show you how the simplest of things can be the most amazing, and how you can put them together into this amazing piece where people think like, oh, how many thousands of years have been doing this, right? Who would want that, by the way, that kind of skill, right? So I guess if you want that, then there's some part of you inside of you already knows what the attitude is, don't you? Right? Can all of you picture yourselves being a little different, a little bit more relaxed, a little more fun, a little bit more charismatic, pulling people's attention in, doing some amazing things, getting those reactions? Can all of you imagine that to some degree, yes? Well, if you can do that, then there's already some part of you that knows how to do this. The only thing that's missing might be some insights and skills, but that's what we're here to fill in terms of the gaps. Does that make sense?
Just talk about attitude and being your best self quite often. It doesn't mean you've got to be a clone of myself or Igor. Be yourself, but just be your best self. Be a little bit bigger than the person you're dealing with, or be bigger than the group that you're dealing with. And as Igor said, just having an attitude of brightness and fascination with your own subject is going to help. But what's going to help you much, much more is the fact that hypnosis is the biggest hook. It's so easy to get people's attention if you mention it. We've been here for the last 3 days and hypnotizing everybody. The doorman of the hotel, the bar owners, the people on the street, people in theatres, all over the place. The vast majority of people we approach are at least up for having a go. And I mean kind of 80% of people say, yeah, that's interesting, I've always wanted to be hypnotized. Or, no, that's terrifying, I've always wondered what it feels like. You know, and either way, you can kind of get started with this if you're just being on your top form, realizing, you know, yes, you can go home and you can consolidate all the learnings and read the scripts and go over it until it's 100%. But one of the secrets of being good at this is to understand that it's actually very simple. The techniques are really, really simple, and the people you work with have no idea what's coming. So you don't need to raise your anxiety levels because you stumble on a word or you miss part of the script or you find yourself, you know, changing the structure slightly. But for now, if you haven't had experience of walking up to strangers and introducing yourself as a hypnotist, then we're going to give you ways of doing that. There are loads of different ways you can do it. It will make it easy, and once you've got their interest, just keep it high, just keep them fascinated. That's really all I'm looking for. So
to begin that whole journey off, I think the best way to start is by finding that spark of the attitude we just talked about inside of you and letting that grow. So that's the place from which you learn all your skills, inside of which, and from where you actually begin your career as a proper walk-up street hypnotist, the kind that basically can do all the things you've always thought about doing. Make sense? And the best way to start with that
is perhaps some simple instructions. So if you can all just place your pads down and your pens down and face this way, make yourself comfortable.
Then at some point you may want to put your feet flat on the floor.
Yeah, just place both feet flat on the floor. And separate your hands. If they're not already, just put them on your lap.
And at some point you might want to take a breath or two so you can begin to relax.
Because it's easy. Just like sneezing. It's just like breathing.
And you can continue to breathe.
So as you breathe, you're going to find it easier to focus on your breathing if you just allow your eyes to close. That's what I'd like you to do. Just close your eyes.
With those eyes closed.
Understand that you have nothing to do
other than just listen.
There's nobody wanting anything.
Nothing for you to do.
And there's nobody expecting anything.
Nothing for you to feel.
And some of you will wonder.
Nothing for you to think.
But not doing, not speaking.
And you can enjoy.
Might make it easier to not listen.
Just letting go.
Anything than the sound of my voice.
And flowing.
Other voices.
Through this experience.
So let go.
And enjoy.
If you need to move and make yourself more comfortable, you can.
The process of going inside.
And being still now.
And finding.
Now all I'm asking you
inside
is to understand
something.
All that matters here
of why you are here
is your imagination.
And what you can do.
With other people's imagination.
What you can achieve.
You can learn to direct.
And enjoy the experience.
and shape their experience.
Of focusing all your mental energy.
So there's no need to wonder
On something marvelous.
whether you are in a deep trance
So just let it all go.
or a light trance,
Allow your unconscious.
and whether you get there quickly
To create the process for you.
or slowly,
Of finding
you'll find that you can become more aware of things
the core reason you are here.
that might go overlooked.
And letting it grow.
So as you relax,
A feeling builds inside.
you may have an understanding
A good feeling.
that you have a conscious and an unconscious,
And all you need to do
that you have a creative mind.
is enjoy.
All that really matters,
Allowing that feeling to grow.
and pay more attention
To yourself.
to those thoughts,
Inside.
ideas,
Things are happening.
and images
Changes occurring.
that drift through your mind
That are of great importance.
in a continuous flow.
Every time a house is built,
Right from the foundations.
the foundations are the key.
They dig those holes deep down in the ground.
Preparing for a proper foundation to be set.
Understand that everything you've learned and understood
A lifetime of experiences
is a resource that you can draw upon.
are the best way
So you can use your imagination
to create the space
right now,
in which
go out into a fantasy.
a foundation can be built.
Get a sense of yourself out there,
Where you breathe differently,
being the person you want to be.
feel differently,
Having learnt these skills
act differently.
and found you can hang on the knowledge you already have.
Simple instincts
To see yourself out there meeting people,
aligning themselves
learning new things,
with your true goal.
different people,
It's easy,
different ways of speaking.
and so soon you'll know how.
And imagine that you can see that look of fascination.
It's as if
You can see their eyes widening.
some part of you already knew how to do this,
And you're speaking,
and you don't need to know how.
and all you're doing is putting forward ideas,
Or what that part is.
allowing their mind, their imagination to lock around those ideas.
A sponge absorbs water by its simple nature,
So you can present images,
and all
you can tap into their feelings,
you have to do
and you can raise their emotions.
is simply allow the sponge to rest,
It's easy.
and the water will be absorbed.
So as you sit there,
A tense sponge doesn't really work.
I want you to think about the person who's dearest to you on this planet.
Might as well relax.
If there's more than one, see more than one.
That hand
Get an image of that person in mind.
and watch the absorption take place.
Do it now. See their face, see their
How
eyes,
fascinating
hear their voice, hear their
that
laughter.
process is
Find that feeling,
of absorbing
that memory
without any effort,
that reminds you of the bond you have with them.
working all by itself.
Now as you find that feeling,
And all it takes
and as you listen to me,
is a relaxed,
allow that feeling to grow inside you.
comfortable attitude.
Fill up each cell,
And you can do that.
and the space between those cells,
That's right.
deep into your very core.
And then
Understand with that feeling inside you,
that's the place.
nothing that you cannot do.
And from there,
So then
everything happens.
go out into that fantasy.
and bring it inside you.
Get a sense of yourself out there amongst those lights and people.
And enjoy it. Because at some point, I don't know, in the next couple of hours probably, you might find yourself out on some sidewalk, in some interesting place. And it's true, when you're at a sidewalk, it's usually a good idea to have your eyes open so you can interact with people, right? So when you do find yourself opening your eyes at some point today, just remember that feeling you had inside and take it with you. Because that's really the place on which the foundation gets built, doesn't it? And to the extent that that was a positive feeling, a positive experience that you had inside you, well, isn't that the ideal place in which to put a whole bunch of skills and abilities that you actually want to use at some point? Just think of it this way. The more you build the foundations here, the more you get to feel that every time you do street hypnosis out there. Wouldn't this be a good thing to do? So I'm going to encourage you to maintain that attitude you have inside right now. So that as we go into the actual skill building, all the rest of it, you use that to develop the whole personality, the whole routine, the whole street hypnosis skill set that you've come to learn. Does that make sense to you guys? Who here is excited, by the way? Are you guys excited enough to stand up? Can I have a volunteer, please? Coming up. Oh my God, Shane's always the first. I don't understand how this works. Maybe because he knows what's coming. All right, Shane, look at me. Take a deep breath and sleep all the way. That's right, deeper. That's right, deeper, deeper still. And when I'm going to stand you up, you can go deeper into trance. That's right. Balancing on your own feet, deeper into trance. As I turn you slowly, just go deeper and deeper. That's right. Deeper and deeper. Feeling great. That's right. You're doing a great job, Jane. A great job. And to thank you for coming out here and being a wonderful demonstration subject. I think your unconscious already knows what's going to happen, don't you? Only this time, that's right. I'm going to do it in a very interesting way. What I'd like you to notice is how this hand, that's right, let's just start to begin to, there you go, rest there. That's it, just find that hand, finding its own balance point. There you go, that's it, excellent. Now something amazing is going to happen in a moment, Shane. You've come here to become a great street hypnotist, have you not? And it takes a, should we say, an unconscious mind aligned to your purpose to make it easy and fun and exciting. Now I want you to notice that this hand will move towards your chest, but only as quickly as your unconscious mind does that alignment. You will feel it inside as a really powerful, wonderful emotion beginning to flush through you. And you will notice, that's right, there goes that hand, all the way over to your chest. So by the time that hand touches your chest, you will have the perfect state, the perfect mindset in order to learn street hypnosis quickly, easily, naturally. That's right, a little bit faster now. There you go. There you go, that's right. All the way. And when that hand touches your chest, you can just simply stick there, locking tight. As you lock those emotions into you, locking that ability into you, locking that mental alignment. You can feel that mental alignment, can you not? Your whole mind just knowing what you want. And as that hand locks in there, that alignment locks inside. Try and move your hand and notice you can't. Try and move it and notice how it's stuck, because inside of you, your unconscious mind is making sure that you really get this. Doesn't that feel great? You can try hard on that. Because the harder you try, there you go, the harder you try and the more you fail, the more inside your alignment just becomes rock solid. Rock solid. And when we count to three, at the count of three, you'll open your eyes and you can look at your hand, but you still can't move it. 1, 2, 3. Look at your hand. Try and move it. Does it normally do that? What's going on? I think I made a mistake. See ya. Having fun?
Okay, I have lots of other hypnotists.
Yeah, someone's going to have to undo this at some point.
They'll undo it at some point, I'm sure.
Exactly. So here's what we're going to do. You have a choice. We'll undo one of two things. Either we can undo that alignment you had inside, or we can release the hand and make it back to normal and do all its normal things. Which would you rather have?
Hand release thing.
You sure about that?
Yeah, that sounds like a good option.
Do you think he's congruent with that? All right, so all you have to do is go ahead and tap that hand. 1, 2, 3. When it's done, like magic. Good job, well done. Give him a round of applause. By the end of today, every single one of you here will be able to do that with pretty much anyone you meet. Who would like to learn how to do that? Right? Now, those of you who've trained with me before, you may have noticed we did things slightly differently to the normal way we teach instant inductions. So bear with me as we go through the same process. I know a lot of you will be familiar with it, but we will change a few things along the way just to set you up specifically for the street. Is that okay with you guys? Those of you who haven't trained with me before, who haven't seen anything like this before, you're in for a wild time. So just enjoy yourself, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that whole process and break it down step by step to make it really simple, make it really easy, and make it very natural to you. Is that okay with you guys? So the first thing we want you to do is just find a partner. And actually what you're going to do is you're going to walk around the room and you're going to do this with as many people as possible. With as many people as possible. You go up to them, you look them in the eyes, and you tell them, I am an amazing hypnotist. I really am, really. Yeah. And just look in their eyes and to say with absolute conviction. Can anyone do that? Sure. Can anyone not say that with absolute conviction? No. Well, good. So then you're going to turn around and then the other person's going to do the same to you.
I am an amazing hypnotist.
Wow, really? That's good. All right.
Igor told me.
Exactly. Igor told me so. Can all of you say that congruently and with a real attitude, yes? We're going to test your attitude now, folks. You have 3 minutes to tell everyone in the room just how amazing you are at hypnosis. Off you go. So, was it easy to introduce yourself as a great hypnotist, yes? Everyone enjoying that? Okay, so the next thing you need to do is we're going to start looking for certain things, right? So I'm going to just introduce myself. Hi, I'm a great hypnotist. Well, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Let's come over here and just experience some hypnosis. All you're looking for is how they're walking over and you just get their attention. That's it. Is that easy to do? You're asking someone to stand somewhere. Could you just stand over here for a second? Now just look at me. Is that difficult to do? So what you're doing here is, we'll just do it very quickly and then we'll elaborate on that as we go along. You're all familiar with the ABS formula, right? Everyone recognize absorption of attention part, right? Okay, just find as many people as possible. Your job is, number one, to move them around somewhere, just check how well they're responding. And number two is to focus their gaze on you, focus their attention. Where their eyes go, their attention goes, more or less. Does that make sense? So you have 2 minutes to do 10 people. Off you go. So, was that easy to do? Yes? So what we do now is just add a little refinement. Do you notice that how some people, when you ask them to step over here for a moment, would you? They get a little bit hesitant. Have you ever noticed that? Whereas other people, when you say step over here, they get kind of nice and relaxed and it's like, oh, this is easy. Do all of you notice that happening just as you were doing this, yes? Here's what I want you to do. If the person steps over nice and lightly, just come over here, would you? There you go. Then you're in good shape. Well, that's called as compliance. They're following along. Is their mindset in the game or out of the game? What do you reckon? Right? Are they going to be coming along with you? They're doing the stuff we do, or is there some resistance? They're coming along with you, right? If they resist slightly, like, could we just step over here a little bit?
What were we doing?
Right? At this point, would you be fair to say we have some resistance going on here, right? Do you want to start your instant induction here? No, because you don't have all their attention, and the critical factor has actually increased rather than decreased. Does that make sense? So we have to put them at their ease. You can do that with language. We're going to do something very interesting in terms of hypnosis. Do you like to relax?
Yeah, of course.
Come over here. I'll show you something how to relax. Right? Now, let's say I still didn't have them completely here. What I want you to do is to start playing with their body. Do you see this little rocking motion I have here? Right? You want to test the rocking motion to see how comfortable they're feeling, but you're still talking to them as you're doing this. So really, all you're going to do is a little experiment on how your mind can actually turn to relaxation. Have you had a stressful day ever before, where you felt like, I just want to switch off and just feel good, right? How do you like to learn how to do that instantly, whenever you want? So, do you notice what I'm doing here as I'm talking to him? I'm kind of slowly moving his body around a little bit. This lets me, first of all, gets him a little bit of a rhythm. It gets a little bit of trance, a little bit relaxing. But it also lets me test to see how well they're responding at this point. You see how that works? If he's rock stiff, rock solid, I may just switch to someone else and work with them first. Otherwise, if I can just talk to them about, comfort, relaxation, or how this is really natural, or if there's any concerns and so on, and all the time I'm rocking, this gives me a feeling, an instant feedback as to how responsive he's becoming. Does that make sense to you guys? So here's what we do now as a result of this. You're going to go around and do exactly the same exercise again. In other words, you're going to introduce yourself to someone. Hi, I'm an amazing hypnotist. Do you want to do some hypnosis? Sure. Right? Now, as they walk across, they'll either be totally compliant or they'll have a slight hesitation. We don't need to have a great hesitation, just a slight one, right? If you feel a slight hesitation as they move across, come on over here. Right, there's a little bit more than slight, but that's okay. We can live with that. All I want you to do now, if they get a slight hesitation, is turn up your attitude. Smile at them. Do that little sort of rocking backwards and forwards, side to side, in kind of random patterns, and then talk to them about, well, there's nothing really to be concerned about in terms of what we're doing. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to hypnotize you yet. I just want to show you how to relax. Have you ever noticed that when your mind's in the right place, your body just relaxes like that and it feels great? You ever notice that? How would you like to be able to do that anytime?
Be amazing.
So notice how each time I was talking to him, his body started relaxing more, he's giving me more and more leeway and setting up the context to do the work. Does that make sense? All right, guys, do 10 people, you have, I'll give you a little longer this time, 3.5 minutes. Off you go.
We're going to take this a little bit further now. One of the kind of mantra of mine when I'm training people is to test your work. Okay, I got into this via very indirect Ericksonian style hypnotherapy, which is good, and it's great language, and there's lots of good technique in there that I love. And I'll use some of that on the street, but most of the time it's much more direct. People often mistake my stuff for being completely direct, but it's pretty direct. Many people, when they begin with it, focus on the induction, and we're just building up to an induction. We're dropping you right in the middle of it here. But when I say test your work, often I'm referring to the stuff we're going to do later on today, the phenomena. If you think they're hypnotized, then give them a suggestion. Their hand's stuck, their feet are stuck, that they can't remember something, that they can see something that isn't there. Test your work. The vast majority of hypnotherapists never test their work, would never know if someone was hypnotized because it might all crash and burn around them, okay? So that testing process doesn't just apply to amnesia and hallucinations. Right here, what you're doing already is testing. This isn't just, you know, a sequence of actions you're going to go through like a robot and not think about. Okay, by the time we get to this place you just come over here. Yeah, I'm a hypnotist. Can I show you something interesting?
Sure, cool.
Cool, I'll tell you what, just take a step forward for me and just place your feet together if you would. Right, all of this stuff is, to me, is just like this arm on the shoulder. It's just a verbal equivalent. If I'm trying to feel and sense, is he moving in my direction? Not just from a sense of compliance. I want compliance. I want him to do exactly what I ask him to do, pretty much on the beat that I ask it. Okay, but I want to feel. Again, resistance can make you think they don't want to do it. That's not necessarily the case. It's just a misunderstanding. If they think they're being dragged somewhere away from their friends and they're less comfortable about that, then they may give some physical resistance. If you give pretty much any reason at all to stand there, this is a better spot. Stand over here and you can relax. Any reason, even if it's a nonsensical reason, people will just take the step and stand there. Okay, so when we're doing this, I know you're obviously getting to know each other and it's all a bit of a laugh, right? I want you to genuinely try and gauge consistently where they're at, where their attention is at. And Igor will talk about levels of attention later, I'm sure. But at this point, is that pretty much on the beat? When you give a suggestion, when you give an instruction at this point, if you like, rather than a suggestion, are they acting on it perfectly? When you get that hand on their shoulder, this is like a sensitivity drill. So if I say, you can relax, or have you ever had an experience where you just need to relax more, and I don't feel that loosen up at all, then that idea hasn't been taken on board, even though it was delivered as a question. So we're going to drill this in over and over and over again until your ears bleed. Right? But the purpose is not just to say these lines without any real engagement. Get their attention, get their eye contact, put your hand on their shoulder, and be as sensitive as you can to what's coming back at you. That's how you're going to get better at it. I can tell you the vast majority of the times, but in a typical street hypnosis situation, by the time I get to the induction, my work is done. I'm absolutely certain that I know the induction will come off. And that's all down to this simple and constant testing. All right, so we're going to add a little piece to it now about getting the eye fixation and the best ways of doing that, and then we'll just practice again.
Okay. Yeah. So just remember, folks, that the key here is you're responsible. You're the hypnotist, right? Who is the hypnotist in this room? I am. Okay, he's right. He's over there. No, you're the hypnotist, which means the drills we're doing right now, imagine that you're on the street and you're going to have to do something with this. You're going to get someone's hand stuck to the wall, hallucinate something, whatever. Does that make sense? So you need to convince yourself, am I happy to put this person in trance right now? And if there's any doubt in your mind, well, then either call someone over or start playing with it. Get a little bit more of this, talk to them a little bit more until you find that kind of natural receptivity thing coming on. So all of you have a sense that some people were really easy to work with, yes? Did all of you have a sense that some people were a little bit more like, oh, I don't know about this? Yes? That's the sense you want to develop. That's the whole thing that Anthony's talking about. All right? Should we go on to the next part, the eye fixation?
Yeah, just to add one thing, when you're giving an instruction to move, without getting into complexities of language, just phrasing it as would you, and could you, and can you, just makes people step right into it. They take it as an instruction, as a command. Would you stand here for me? Would you place your feet together? It kind of assigns some value to it. So that, rather than just saying stand there, stand here, do this, it just softens it slightly, and I find that helps things along.
Right,
Yep.
so do you want to do the eye thing, or do we do it?
You go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so next thing again, you start at exactly the same point. Introduce yourself as a hypnotist. Hi, I'm a great hypnotist. Did you know that?
Yes.
Well, of course you did. So if you stand over here, you'll actually get an experience of it too. Isn't that fantastic? Wow. So this is a compliant subject or not? Do I have his responsiveness or not? I do, don't I? Oh, good. In that case, you can now put both hands on the shoulders. And now this is the key thing. I'm going to look straight at his eyes, or maybe you can get him to look at my eyes. Please just look at my eyes. Mm-hmm. There. So what I'm looking for is, do I have eye fixation? So the eye become perfectly still, and you'll almost notice that something shifts. It's like a breathing shift maybe, or a slight change in the eyes. It does not matter if you can tell what the shift was, as long as you get a sense of something just changed there, and I'm not even quite sure what it is. Does that make sense?
I think your pupils dilated.
A little dilation of pupils, and yeah, we can talk about that later on. For the moment, all we're looking for is there a slight shift in that person, and do they have all their attention locked on you?
Yeah.
Can you get that part?
Let me just add one little tip with this eye fixation. Again, it kind of makes it easier. Some people really struggle to look in your eyes, especially if you've got both eyes locked on their face. Their eyes will track all over your face. Okay, so often if they're kind of a bit timid and they can't manage to lock on, I'll just say, look here, just right underneath my eye. Okay, and I'll point to one spot. And rather than looking through both their eyes like this, I normally, and just habitually now, will just focus on one of your eyes, and I'm actually going to look straight through your head. Right? So, because what that does, it encourages my eyes to fixate, and they will not move from that point. I will literally look at the light reflecting in Eagle's pupil, and try it like I'm looking at a magic eye picture. Right? My eyes will fixate and dilate slightly, and their gaze has to then fixate on a single spot. And they won't move, they won't look at their friends, they'll just stay locked on. So just when you're doing it, rather than just being this, where our eyes are kind of tracking, just get their attention and just say, no, just look here, and just keep your eyes on that spot. And then I know that I've got his full attention, okay?
Is that easy to do, guys? Okay. Notice the different responses you get in people's eye patterns and in the focus levels as you do this. There's no right or wrong, just notice how people will vary. Off you go. All right, so was that easy? Yes or no? Yes. All right, let's have a little conviction here. Was that easy, yes or no? Yes. Thank you. Who noticed that there's different levels of attention that you're getting from different people? Anyone? How did you notice that? Body language, eyes, just a sense, right? Whatever that is that you're doing, that's what you need to be building. That's your instinct. That's why Anthony can say, without a shadow of a doubt, that he'll know before he starts the induction who is going to be a great responder. Does that make sense?
And just to put that in perspective, as I look out at a crowd like this, I have no idea who's going to be a good responder. I cannot walk into a room and spot good subjects. I've got to find out by testing them out a little bit.
By giving them little suggestions, feedback. Little instruction, little feedback. It's the feedback that tells you what's going on. Does that make sense? Is that easy so far? Yeah? Okay, here's the next step. So you have their attention. You introduce yourself. We'll do the whole same thing. Hi, I'm a hypnotist. You want to try some hypnosis?
Sounds
Fantastic. Good. Come over here. Have a step. Fantastic. Look at me. Just focus on my eyes. That's right. Now, we have the fixation of attention, right? This is the point you've gotten to. The next thing is, what I want you to do is just cup your hand and hold the back of his head. A lot of you are familiar with this already. I just want you to hold the back of his head. Nothing else. Just hold the back of his head, okay? No yanking, no pulling, no turning the head off and kicking the football around. Just hold its attention and hold the back of the head here. And just wait for a few seconds. You'll notice, especially when you're the subject, that it changes something inside you. Just notice what that is, and we'll talk about it afterwards. Is that okay? All right, guys, you have 1 minute to do that to as many people as possible. Off you go. Okay, that was easy, right? Hopefully that wasn't like a mental meltdown, like, oh, I can't put my hand in the same place. What did you notice when someone was staring at you, and at some point put his hand at the back of your head and carried on staring? What happened inside of yourself as the subject at this point? What kind of things? Say again? You felt more connected. What else?
Weird.
A little weird, right?
So did you feel weird? What? Weird, uncomfortable? Surprised?
It's on the edge.
Right.
It's not necessarily comfortable, but it's not necessarily uncomfortable.
But
It's somewhere in the edge.
you remember earlier we spoke about emotion. You know, even if it is, what's happening? Why is this hand on my head? That's still a raising of emotion. So it's still useful.
Well, let's get some more things. What was that? You found it calming. Okay. What else did you find out?
It did kind of feel like it started as an altered state of consciousness.
It started feeling like an altered state of consciousness. So what you begin to do here is we're beginning to hold bypass of the critical factor. Right? The weirdness you felt, that altered state of consciousness, the comfort, the connection, all these are signs that something like normal reality is no longer working, some kind of special reality is starting to work. Does that make sense? So really, the induction has already begun, although it may only be a fraction of a second that you bother with that or do anything like that. Does that make sense to you guys? So I saw a couple of you do something very interesting here as well, which is when you had the person there, you carried on with this whole swaying and testing sort of thing, because as Anthony was saying earlier on, your testing never stops. Another way to think of this is as a feedback loop, right? And the feedback loop is constantly cycling. The minute you stop sending back the feedback, in other words, cycling that feedback loop, that's where trance either stops or weird things can happen because now you're no longer in the experience, you're just observing an experience. Does that make sense to you guys? So you're always alert to that feedback loop.
Another point I'm going to make is that in any kind of hypnotic encounter, even if it's a cozy therapy room or a booming club, it doesn't really matter. At some point, you have to become the dominant party in that relationship. And again, some people misinterpret that as being overbearing, authoritarian. That's not what I mean. I mean it more like in a doctor-patient relationship, you trust that he has certain expertise. If he's asking you to swing your arms around and do silly things, there's probably a reason, even though you might not know what it is. And this little step of just touching the back of the head, I normally just place one finger on the back of their head, is a physical way of immediately becoming the dominant party in this situation. They'll assign a value to what you're doing. They'll put some meaning on what you're doing, and they're now kind of just poised, waiting for your next direction, your next instruction. It's not going to come from them because they haven't really been in this situation before. So you're the dominant party, and you're going to just continue to direct their experience. Okay?
All right, so let's do something with this now, shall we? So you've got to the point where you've moved them around, you have all the rest of it, you have their attention, hand is here. You can get to this point easily enough, right? All I want you to do now, and this is just a setup for something a little bit later on, what I want you to do now is move their forehead into your shoulder, right? Note, I'm not pulling, I'm not forcing, I'm just gently guiding his forehead into my shoulder. Now, that may come with a whole bunch of balance, just give me a whole balance with it. Right. So I may have his whole body. Notice how I have to take a step back if his whole body comes into me, right? Or I might just have a token sort of nodding of the head and he still have most of his balance. It doesn't matter. The point is two things. Number one, if you're getting the whole balance, please take a step back, plant your leg on the ground because you're responsible for that person's balance at this stage. Does that kind of make sense? If you're a very small person and you have a very large person, this may not be the best mix. Right? Do you know what you do at that point? Please, have a chair. Sit down. You can still do it. Do you have to sit down just to show them? So even if there's a big weight and size differential, you can still do the same thing. Just look at me. Let's turn this chair sideways so everyone can see properly. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you guys can see properly here, yes? You guys in the back can see all right? Okay. You still have the same differential. The size differential has been taken care of now, hasn't it? I can still have both hands, just look at me. Mm-hmm. I can still have the cupping, and then just bring it forward. Just because they're sitting in the chair does not mean you can't do the same thing. Does that make sense?
This point about balance is another soft test at this point. It's not that they have to go off balance. Mm-mm. It's not that I particularly want them leaning on me, and I'm certainly not trying to pull them off balance. I'm trying to get them to that balance point. I'm trying to get that person so they trust this process enough that they're happy to give me their entire body weight if that's the idea that they're picking up. So that's another nice little test. If I was to just touch the back of the head and you just leant forward with your body weight.
That's a very receptive person. Makes your life a lot easier. Yeah. Okay, guys, there's a quick question over here. Go ahead. So the question is, what do you do if you're on the street and there's no chair? right? We'll come on to that afterwards. There's lots of different inductions. Let's just get one out of the way first, and then we'll deal with those sort of things after. But trust me, there's lots of other ways of dealing with that, okay? Any other questions?
Do you have a question?
Go, 1 second, over here first.
I noticed it is much more uncomfortable if I'm right-handed and somebody asks me to go to the left.
So you notice that he's more uncomfortable if he's right-handed and someone asks you to go to the left. Some people will feel more comfortable one way. So the question is, does it make difference which way you turn them?
If you're left-handed to go to the left.
So the question is it easier to turn one way or the other? It'll be different with each person, so I wouldn't worry about that. The key thing is, if that person's level of discomfort is interfering with the process, then you have to do something. Otherwise, I don't think it's exactly. You'll get used to it over time, and you'll notice if someone feels a little bit uncomfortable one way, you might try the other way. Just play with that. That's the easiest thing. You want to add something?
You had a question, didn't you?
Well, I was just going to thank you for the chair demonstration, because as a short lady, I've been avoiding a lot of the tall guys in the room, because it's like, I have to be up on my tiptoes to get my hand.
I was on my tiptoes last night, shouting in a pro tennis player's ear. But he still ended up completely hypnotized. So.
Okay.
You're the hypnotist. You can do, and you just change the environment to suit you at that point, right? Very quickly.
Permission to touch their head comes from the blind.
Right. Well, actually, the whole thing is an escalation. Notice that I start touching with the handshake, then I put my hand on the shoulder, say, would you like to step over here? If I'm having problems with my hand on the shoulder here, do you think I'm going to go for the whole induction or the head, anything like that? No. It's a very different thing. Is he standing over here now? Notice how I've got both hands on his shoulder now. That's even more dominant. I'm actually inside his physical space. I'm invading even further. I've got his eye contact and so on. If he's going to allow me to do this, then unless he has issues around being touched on the head, which some people do, then there really won't be no. It's implied in the whole process.
Exactly, and just put this in context. We're starting you slap bang with an induction.
There'll be lots of other things you can do.
Approach, set up, and all that kind of breaking into their physical space. We just decided to start with the action, and we'll get to setting out.
We'll get to all kinds of other things later on as well. The thing right now to do is just treat this as a training wheel exercise. A lot of you will actually stick with this for many years to come because it's fun and it's easy to do. There are lots of other variations as well, so don't worry about that too much right now. And one very important thing to bear in mind is, if it can go wrong, at some point it will, right? It's just life. So as long as you take it with a good spirit and go, oh, I'm sorry about that, don't worry about it. Come over here, sit down, we'll do it a different way, right? Then it's totally relaxed, it's totally chill, and people tend to be quite good with that. And honestly, if they're still not good with that because you touched them on the head and they really didn't like it, and even though you apologize and tried another method, then actually thank your lucky stars, boys and girls. Thank your lucky stars, because that's probably a person you do not want to be hypnotizing in public, unless they're paying you a lot of money to overcome some kind of trauma, which has to do with being touched on the head and all the rest of it. Does that make sense? And so it's kind of like a built-in test.
And the other thing is, the shoulder is just as good as the head. So if they've got lots of hairspray, or for some reason you don't want to touch their head,
there's lots of ways you can do it.
Don't clean their hair, just
for now,
use their shoulder.
For now, let's keep it very simple, and we'll elaborate on that as we go along. All good? Okay, so what do we have so far? We have the handshake, the introduction, we have the first compliance test, we have the second compliance test with maybe a little bit of rocking if we need to get into it, we have the fixation of attention, and we have the hand on the back of the head, right? Now what we're going to add is bringing their head forward onto their shoulder. Now, notice a couple of important safety tips. Those of us wearing some eye adornments, this is not a good idea to bring that head forward, because crushing those glasses against the eyes is not really a recipe for happiness, especially out there in the real world, all right? So if someone's got glasses, just say to them, can I borrow your glasses, or could you put your glasses somewhere safe for a moment, please? Don't take your glasses off just now, by the way, just because you're hearing this. Keep them on. It'll give them a chance to actually practice taking control of the glasses. Does that make sense? Make sure those glasses are somewhere where they feel safe with them, maybe in their pocket. If it's a quieter environment, like a dinner party or something, maybe on the table. In a bar or club, don't put it on the table, because they might get more concerned about what's happened to their glasses and so on. Does that kind of make sense? But take care of that person, and notice that the part of their head that's going to touch your shoulder is right here on the forehead, nothing below, right? So you want to make sure that you're guiding the forehead into the shoulder. That way there's a nice balance point. Is that easy? Okay, off you go, guys. Just take a minute doing that now. So did you guys enjoy that? Is that easy? So that's hopefully a no-brainer at that point, right? So now we're going to come to the only, shall we say, technical bit in the whole induction, right? And I say technical only because most people come in misunderstanding the next step. Those of you who've already trained with me will kind of know what I'm talking about. You've done the whole handshaking, introduction, coming over here, nice and friendly, big smile. You have this, you have your attention, you have the hand on the back of the head. Now, for the induction, essentially what we want to do to finalize this bypassing of the critical factor is we want to trigger the startle reflex. By triggering the startle reflex, for a brief moment in time, it lasts from a split second to a couple of seconds, depending on the individual, their regular thought patterns go offline. That is your opportunity to do something. Does that make sense? Now, to trigger the startle reflex, all you really need is that. Did you notice the slight blink and the slight shift in his posture? Right? Now, I don't necessarily recommend going around poking people on the forehead, although you can, and we'll talk about that and how to do that later on. The point is, you can do it anyway. Have you ever heard or seen hypnotists doing this? Right? That's another startle reflex. You notice again the blink reflex he had when I did that. Why? It's a sudden startling noise close to the body. Right? To trigger the startle reflex in this particular induction, all we're going to do is from this position here, so you can see, I'm just going to use one finger. That's it, one finger in the back of the head. I'm just going to tip it forward slightly. Do you notice how there's a tiny motion of the head? I am not looking for a big yank, right? That is a recipe for a lawsuit. What I am looking for is just a tiny little finger, and here, as soon as he's lost his balance for a second, that little jolt, that is all that you need for this to work. Does that make sense to you guys? So your hand is here, and all you're going to do is do a little jolt. You'll see the jolt, and then from here, very gently, you're going to guide his head into the same position you had it before. All right? So once again, over there, so you have a different angle on this. From this position here, a little jolt, and then a guide. It is not a pull. It is not a force. It's not a hard jerk. It's not a whiplash injury waiting to happen. It literally is just a little finger creating that effect and then guiding it in. Can you all do that? All right? Just spend 2 minutes doing that with as many different people as possible, and then we'll come back.
When you do this, again, this is another sensitivity drill for you. Right? When you give that tap on the head, you'll find this reflex response, it's almost like a very sharp rise in adrenaline or attention, and then it drops off again. So what I find tends to happen is with that tap, it's almost like it comes forward as a moment of resistance, then they fall into it. Just like you've jumped out and said boo, and someone's like, oh God, why did you do that? It's the same thing that's happening there. That's what I'm trying to feel and look for. It doesn't matter if it's slightly staggered. Some people get put off by the fact that they tap their head, they look up, and then kind of give in. I'm trying to get as much of an unconscious response as I can. I'm trying to read as much as I can from that one little tap. So now you can start.
So the question is it the giving in you're looking for? What you're looking for is the smoothness, right? If the person gets all rigid like this, well, you've already got a bit of a span in the works. But if they go like this and then go, that's the bit I'm looking for. That's going to time that kind of guiding, because I now know that they're breathing out and they're giving in, and that you've got that trust that. You know. And some people will drop like a sack of potatoes. You saw Shane do a pretty good version of that one earlier on. Right? Other people will be like that, and they'll be looking at you at that point to determine on what happens next. If you go, come on, that's not a happy response. But if you go, that's right, all the way. So you just take everything in your stride. The key you're looking for here is, number one, smoothness. Number two, how would you like them to treat you if that was you? Does that make sense? So just get different reactions. I want you to experience as many different people as possible with this, because you will get a relative wide variance, and it's important that you experience it for yourself. Make sense? Off you go, guys. So was that easy, folks? Yes? Easy to do? Did you notice a variety of responses? Yes? Do you notice some people just dropped like a sack of potatoes, whereas others were kind of rigid and they needed a little bit something extra to release into that? Yes? Would that be fair to say? And did you notice how everyone at some point releases once you get the right combination of whatever needs to happen? Is that correct? I'd like you to remember that experience, because that is the foundation on which all your hypnosis, especially instant inductions and so on, will be built. Every suggestion you present will be taken either instantly, or there'll be some hesitation, and something needs to be massaged around it for it to naturally be accepted. Right? And it'll be easy, just as easy it is to figure out, okay, I'll just do something slightly differently here, and oh, now it worked. Does that make sense to you guys? Are you ready for the real magic now? Are you ready for the hyper convoluted language pattern that goes with this? I warn you, this will tax your memory. I know. So you have all the positions, they're over here, right? You've looked in the eye, you've focused their attention, you're happy with the attention, hand on the back of the head, you've tipped the back of the head. Now, just at that point, notice how if you just become a little resistant at first, but then the whole surrender thing, notice how there's a little bit there, we have the shock, and now he's the surrender. That's the point the sleep comes in. So you have here, a little surrender and sleep, all the way. That's right, all the way. That's it, there you go. And then bring him back. Is that easy or difficult to do? All you're really doing is adding one word, sleep. And if you want to add some extra language to make it kind of comforting and crooning, that's all good. Go ahead. 1 second. So the question is, everyone uses the word sleep. Is there any other word you use? Yes, but it becomes more convoluted because sleep is very compact, but has all the ideas into it. In certain communities, there may be something that fits that community, like trance or go inside or something like that.
Or just relax. It's just a starting cue.
Exactly.
You can say any of those things. I hypnotized 3,500 people before I said the word sleep because it seemed ridiculous to me. But as soon as I started saying the word sleep, because I had some stage hypnosis training, my success rate increased massively. People just seem to know what it means. They just seem to know what to do.
Remember, it's a cultural cue because people will have seen hypnotists, stage hypnotists. What is the one thing that people always say to you when you tell them you're a hypnotist? Oh, don't look into my eyes. Don't say the word sleep. Oh, you're going to say sleep now? Right? It's kind of been culturally acclimatized. Now, you go somewhere like, I don't know, Vietnam, where they don't really have a concept of hypnosis. You know, it's probably even bets that it'll work or not work in any ways. But whilst you're in North America, whilst you're in Europe, and people have a perception of this, you may as well use a cultural perception. Does that make sense? Yeah. And don't worry, after the break, we'll come on to other languaging and so on. Right now, we're just trying to keep it as complex as possible by adding in just one word.
But let me just give you one little reminder, okay? Because we've now got to this point where you are going to say this word. And this is the point where, you know, in the layperson's eyes, the hypnosis happens. So as well as adding that one word, what I want you to add now is your intent and your attitude again. But as you go around the room now, understand, if you mean to hypnotize people with this now, if you get their attention, you get their compliance, you get that fascination, and you give them that tap and you say sleep and you mean it, then some of you are going to hypnotize people in here.
Here's a simple way of doing this. Everyone hold your hand out like this, if you would. Now I want you to hold onto something here. What this is your hypnotic cloak. Put it on around you. Put on your hypnotic top hat. If you want to have an evil monocle as well, that's good too. Now with that attitude, go out and put in the word sleep. Off you go. So, boys and girls, how was that? Was that easy? Yeah, did it work okay? Who enjoyed that? Okay. Is it easy to do? Just putting that word sleep in. Do you notice how some people have a slight hesitation, but you can still, as long as your attitude is in the right place, it just kind of soothes it away. Notice this? Yes. Okay, so now we're going to have one more piece of this, which is really important. A lot of people think that that's the induction, because that's what people see. That is not the induction. Actually, the most important thing you do in that whole process, in my opinion, is what happens next. It's what you say after you say sleep. Does that make sense? And that's technically known as a deepener. We'll talk a little bit more about the mechanics of this after the break. But for the moment, I want you to do a little bit of a deepener. The simplest way of doing a deepener is just a magic formula. This is something which is a standard classic in the industry, and I kind of like it just because it's really a no-brainer to remember. The more you relax, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you relax. What you're essentially creating is a feedback loop between feeling good and relaxing, and feeling more good and feeling more relaxed and so on. Does that make sense?
What it takes care of is that, again, for most people, especially the first time they're hypnotized, and they expect you to be asleep, or they expect not to hear you, or they expect not to be thinking, all of that stuff rushes through their mind after you say sleep. The fact that you just continue talking tells them, without you having to really state it, that this is fine, this is exactly what I'm expecting, this is the perfect situation, you're doing brilliantly, right? The mistake a lot of beginners make is they say sleep, and they kind of look, like, are you there yet? And I guarantee they'll just look up and open their eyes. However good that induction was, they'll just open their eyes because you've lost direction. So,
incidentally, may as well practice this. From time to time, someone will actually do this. You'll say, sleep to them, they'll close their eyes, and they'll come right back up and look at you like, what? What do you do at this point? Any ideas? That's right. The better you feel, the more you relax. The more you relax, the better you feel. Now, if his eyes are still open, you say, that's right. Just close your eyes. The more you relax, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you relax. It does not matter what they do unless you're having an actual, should we say, some kind of resistance, kind of response, like they're pulling away, they're flailing in the air, trying to claw your eyes out. At that point, I hope that you have enough acuity of your senses to realize that something else has gone deeply wrong. Does that make sense? But for almost anything else that can happen in the whole induction, as long as you keep rolling, they will eventually slip into the right trance. Think of it this way. When someone goes there and looks at you this way, they're in actually a wide open trance. And the very next thing you do or say will be the suggestion. Now, would you want them to give them this suggestion? Or would you like them to give them the suggestion of, right? So your attitude is really important. This is the key piece. So remember, get your cloaks out. Throw them around, put a top hat on, I like the top hat, and a little monocle. Go ahead.
I didn't hear you say bring your feet together so that they would be...
we're going to kind of build out.
We'll talk about those two things later. Right now, the only reason for the feet was an extra act of compliance. That's it. Okay. We don't need the feet. The hypnosis does not happen with feet or balance, anything like that. It's purely and simply an act of compliance that may be useful for other things you'll do later on, but we'll get onto that. For the moment, all you need is the mechanics we've talked about. Go ahead.
I find that I get lost when I'm trying to do this. My mind is going so fast. I get lost with even that simple thing, and I tend to use deeper.
Deeper.
So
that's right.
Jim was saying here, sometimes it gets overloaded with all the mechanics, so even this might be a little bit too much to remember. And then a simple alternative to this, we may as well use the Jim variation.
That I should remember.
Yeah.
So it's two-word hypnosis: sleep, deeper. Is that easy to do, folks? Yes? Is that so easy to do that we can add just one little piece to it to make it perfect for the street? This is something that is only necessary for street hypnosis, but it's very necessary for street hypnosis. Can we add this, or do you want to do this quickly and then add something else? All right, so here's what we do. We have the whole, hi, I'm a master hypnotist, let's do some hypnosis. Come on over here, fantastic, lovely subject. Look at me here, very good. And sleep deeper. The more deeper you relax, the better you feel, the more you feel good, the more you relax, and deeper and so on, right? Here's the problem. What if I'm so into this, and you're feeling fantastic as you're going deeper in that hypnotic journey, and wow, what an amazing experience you're having. How are you guys feeling right now? Do you feel a little bit left out? Right? Like all the love's happening here, but not over there, right? So we need to make sure, this is street hypnosis, this is a performance. Even if you're doing like a lecture demo for a bunch of medical doctors or at a Rotary Club to get clients and so on, you are still performing. You cannot forget your audience. Does that make sense? So as soon as you have this person over here, the better you feel, the deeper you relax and so on, you can give a very simple instruction. Now find your own balance as you go deeper into trance. Now, you have half the equation. Now I can stand back and talk to you guys as you go deeper and deeper. The deeper you go, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you relax. The more you relax, the deeper you go. That's right. Stop. Yeah, that's right. My turn next. Thank you. But do you notice how much more you've been included in the experience now that I've done that? Does that make sense?
And you're the audience. unless this is a one-to-one interaction, some random acts of kindness, this is not,
Exactly.
it's not actually for me, it's for you. Again, stand up, make sure that you can be heard. But the other thing, if you are outside or in a bar, is that if you turn your head away from your subject, the chances are you will no longer be heard. You will just disappear as far as they're concerned. And again, that will bring them round and they'll look for you. So just keep your attention on them, keep your attention on your audience, but make sure you stay well within
Right after
range.
this exercise, we'll show you a way of doing that every time while still paying attention to the audience. For the moment, let's just go through the whole deepening cycle, and remember to put them on their own balance. The simplest way of doing it is, whatever way you want to describe it, just tell them that having their own balance, holding their own balance, will send them deeper. It's a simple suggestion. Does that make sense? Can you all do that, yes? Hands up if you can do it. Okay, let's get your little hypnotic attitude cloaks on and off you go. All right, we're almost done. Was that easy to do? Yes? Now, I want you to notice something. Do you notice the temptation to leave them hanging on your shoulder and just deepen there? Just don't move them, just don't touch them, because it might break the spell. Anyone have that emotional reaction? Please put your hand up. You need to be aware of it right now, because it'll be more so on the streets when other people are watching you. Does that make sense? And you must resist it. Because whatever can happen on your shoulder can happen just as well with them standing on their own balance if you suggest it. Does that make sense? So here are the mechanics I'm going to encourage you to get used to and really drill now, all right? We're going to a break in a minute, but if you're going to do this in the break, I would strongly recommend you do it. I'll come to you in a second if I may. So mechanics are the same thing we did up to here. The person comes in, sleep, all the way down, deeper, deeper, deeper. Now, finding your own balance. Notice how as I'm doing that, I'm guiding him back onto his own feet, finding your own balance, going deeper and deeper into trance, right? Now at this point, I can carry on talking to him. I'm open to you, but he's not, is he? So now I'm going to do the same thing I did with Shane at the beginning, which is, so now I want you to realize I'm going to very slowly, I'm going to always tell him what's going to come up. I'm very slowly going to turn you. You can feel that taking you even deeper into trance. That's right, turning deeper, more comfortable, deeper, more relaxed. That's right. Now I can stand right next to him. I can talk right into his ear, but I can still have all of you guys and pay attention to all of you guys. Does that make sense? I can talk directly to him, and yet both of us are plainly visible to you. So as the audience goes, it's a very open situation. Does that make sense? Now, of course, if the audience is behind me, I don't do it this way. You realize that, right? So you always find where is the audience, and you've got to try and bring them into it and so on. So to do this, we're going to go into a break, but we're going to do one exercise first, and then go straight into the break. Is that okay with you guys? Sure. So you can carry on all through the break if you want. It's just you'll miss a break. Or you can do it once or twice and then have your break. Either way, it's up to you which way you do it. What we're going to do is exactly what we've done up to this point. Shake your hand, introduce yourself. I'm a great hypnotist. You want to experience hypnosis? Over here they come. Right? You have your compliance, you have your focus, you have your hand, you have your sleep suggestion, deeper, 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 finding your own balance, the deeper you go, and so on. Here's the bit that's going to be different. You're going to be in groups of 3 this time. Can I borrow you a minute, Jim? Up to this point, I've ignored Jim because all the action's been here, hasn't it? So now as it's going to balance, I'm going to begin to turn you slowly as you go deeper. So deeper, deeper, deeper. Now, everything you do from this point is for Jim. Does this make sense to you guys? So, as you feel this wonderful relaxing sensation, yada, 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 I'm going to continuously make eye contact with Jim as I'm talking over here, because that means his trance reality comes stronger, but it includes him in the whole experience. It becomes interactive now. Does that make sense to you guys? Is that easy to do? Yes?
Yes.
There's a couple of questions here. One over here first, and we'll come on to you. Go ahead.
Just a semi-revelation when you...
If there's a semi-revelation, then that has to go on tape. Come on up. Thank you. Oh, so just pass it over.
At those complex language patterns, when you put the circle around deeper,
Yeah.
I started to spell it backwards, and I pronounced it as repeat, which sounds like repeat.
It is. Repeat deeper.
Very good.
And for my next trick, inception. There's a question over here. When do we take their wallet?
About another
2 days time.
You're about 60 seconds from the wallet. That's simple.
You're very close. Oh, and by the way, this is for information purposes only, of course, right? Okay, guys. So go find a partner. Please go in groups of 3. and play to your audience, then have a break. We'll be back here again in 15 minutes, please. Off you go.